It was supposed to be just another quiet night, another long shift, another invisible job that no one in the building ever seemed to notice. But before this night was over, a terrified African cleaner would find herself standing face to face with one of the most feared men in Seoul. And what he would say to her in that moment would shock everyone who later heard the story. Because when the powerful Korean Mafia boss stepped out of the shadows and looked directly into her frightened eyes, he didn't shout. He didn't threaten her. Instead, in a calm voice that no one expected, he said something that would change the course of her life forever. "Don't be afraid. I won't hurt you." But here's the strange part. Men like Kang Joon-Seo were not known for kindness. People in this building whispered about him in quiet voices, and they said he was ruthless, dangerous, a man whose name alone could silence a room. So why would someone like him protect a cleaner that no one else even noticed? And what secret about that night would leave the entire building stunned days later? Stay with this story, because by the end, you'll discover a twist so unexpected that many people still refuse to believe it actually happened. But before we continue, take a quick moment to subscribe to the channel. Stories like this travel across the world, connecting people who may never meet but share the same curiosity and love for powerful human stories. And while you're here, tell us something in the comments. Where are you watching this story from today? Every time someone shares their country, it reminds us just how far these stories can reach. You might be listening from a small town, a busy city, or somewhere thousands of miles away from where this story took place. But tonight, wherever you are in the world, you're about to step inside a building in Seoul where one unexpected encounter would change two lives forever. Because what happened next was not planned. It was not predictable. And it certainly wasn't something Amara expected when she walked into work that evening. In fact, just a few hours earlier, Amara believed this night would be exactly like every other night she had worked in that building. Quiet, lonely, and invisible. But sometimes, the smallest moments can lead to the biggest turning points. And sometimes, the people we fear the most turn out to be hiding the most unexpected secrets. Yeah, to understand why that powerful mafia boss chose to protect her, we have to go back a few hours earlier. Back to the moment Amara first walked into the building that night. Because if she had known what was about to happen, she might have turned around and left. But she didn't. And that decision would lead her straight into the path of a man everyone else was too afraid to even look at. And trust me, what happened after their first meeting is something no one in that building will ever forget. To understand why that night became so unforgettable, we first need to understand the woman at the center of it all. Her name was Amara. Most people in the building didn't know it. To them, she was simply the cleaner. The quiet woman who appeared late at night with a cart, a mop, and a tired smile that rarely received one in return. But Amara's story began thousands of miles away from Seoul. She grew up in a small community where family meant everything. From a young age, she understood responsibility in a way many people never do. Her father had fallen ill years earlier, and her mother worked endlessly just to keep food on the table. As the eldest child, Amara often felt the invisible weight of being the one everyone depended on. So when an opportunity came to work overseas, she didn't hesitate. Leaving home wasn't easy. It meant saying goodbye to the laughter of her younger siblings, the warmth of familiar streets, and the comforting sound of her mother's voice calling her name from the kitchen. But Amara carried a dream with her, a simple one, to build a better future for the people she loved. And so she traveled across continents, eventually finding herself in Seoul, a city that never seemed to slow down. The bright lights were beautiful. The skyscrapers were breathtaking. But life there was far from easy. Most days, Amara felt invisible. She worked long hours cleaning offices, hallways, and conference rooms after everyone else had gone home. While executives signed contracts and celebrated success upstairs, Amara quietly wiped fingerprints from glass tables and vacuumed expensive carpets that cost more than she earned in months. Yet despite everything, she never complained. Because every paycheck meant something important. It meant school fees for her younger brother, medicine for her father, groceries for her mother. Every late night carried a purpose, and that purpose kept her going, even when exhaustion weighed heavily on her shoulders. But there was something else about Amara that most people never noticed. She paid attention. She observed things others ignored. The nervous whispers between employees, the strange late-night meetings, the sudden silence whenever certain powerful men walked through the building. Even though she kept her head down, she could feel it. Something about this building wasn't entirely normal. There were floors she was never assigned to, hallways she was told to avoid, doors that security guards watched a little too carefully. At first, she assumed it was just part of working in a high-end corporate building. After all, powerful people often had secrets. But on this particular night, something unusual happened. Just as Amara was finishing cleaning the lobby, her supervisor approached her with a small piece of paper. "Before you leave," he said quickly, barely looking at her, "clean the VIP floor." Amara paused. The VIP floor? That didn't make sense. She had worked in the building for months, and she had never once been sent there. In fact, cleaners were usually told to avoid that area completely. She hesitated for a moment, but questioning instructions wasn't something workers in her position could easily do. So she nodded politely. "Okay," she said softly. Her supervisor was already walking away before she even finished speaking. Amara looked down at her cart. The mop, the cleaning spray, the bucket. Just another task before the night ended, or so she thought. As she pushed her cart toward the elevator, she couldn't shake the strange feeling building in her chest. Something about the assignment felt different, unusual. But she told herself not to overthink it. After all, it was just another floor, just another hallway to clean. Or at least, that's what she believed. The elevator doors slid open with a soft metallic sound. Amara stepped inside and pressed the button for the VIP level. As the elevator slowly began to rise, she stared at her reflection in the mirrored wall. Her eyes looked tired, but determined. She reminded herself why she was here, why every long night mattered. And as the elevator climbed higher and higher through the building, Amara had no idea that within the next few minutes, she would accidentally walk straight into a room filled with powerful men, men who were discussing secrets that no outsider was ever supposed to hear. And among those men was someone whose name alone made people lower their voices in fear. A man whose reputation traveled through the city like a warning. A man Amara had heard whispered about more than once in the building, but had never actually seen. Not until tonight, because when those elevator doors finally opened, Amara was about to step onto a floor that would change everything. And the moment she pushed her cleaning cart forward, she unknowingly walked straight into the world of Kang Joon-Seo, a man everyone feared, and the very man she would soon come face to face with. But what Amara didn't realize yet was that someone on that floor was already watching the elevator doors open, and her arrival was about to interrupt a meeting that was never meant to be disturbed. The elevator doors slowly slid open. A soft mechanical sound echoed into the empty hallway as Amara gently pushed her cleaning cart forward. The VIP floor looked different from the rest of the building. Much different. The lights were dimmer, the carpets were thicker, and the silence felt heavier. It was the kind of silence that made every small sound feel louder than it should. The squeak of her cartwheels, the quiet splash of water moving inside the bucket. Even her own breathing sounded too loud. Amara paused for a moment, looking around. She had cleaned many floors in this building before, but this one felt different, more private, more important. almost like every wall was hiding something. Still, she reminded herself that she was only here to do one simple job: clean, then go home. So she slowly began moving down the hallway, careful not to disturb anything. But while Amara was nervously scanning the quiet corridor, another story was unfolding behind one of the large closed doors nearby. Inside that room sat a man whose presence alone could make powerful businessmen nervous. His name was Kang Joon-Seo. In the city of Seoul, that name carried weight. Not the kind of weight you read about in newspapers, and not the kind that appeared on company websites. No, the kind people spoke about quietly, in whispers. Because Kang Joon-Seo wasn't just another wealthy businessman. He was something far more dangerous. Some people called him a shadow king of the city. Others simply called him a man you should never cross. No one knew exactly how much power he truly had, but they knew enough to stay out of his way. If Kang Joon-Seo entered a room, conversations stopped. If he made a request, our people rarely refused. And if someone betrayed him, well, those stories rarely ended well. Despite his power, very few people had ever seen him up close. He preferred to stay out of public attention, operating quietly, strategically, like a man who understood that the most powerful figures are often the ones who stay hidden. And tonight, he was sitting at the head of a long, polished table inside a private conference room. Several men sat around him, all of them powerful in their own ways, but none of them looked comfortable. Because even among dangerous men, Kang Joon-Seo stood above them all, tall, calm, observant. He listened more than he spoke, and when he did speak, every word carried purpose. But tonight's meeting was not going smoothly. One of the men across the table had just delivered troubling news. A shipment had gone missing. Money had disappeared. And someone in the organization had clearly made a mistake. A very expensive mistake. The room was tense. No one wanted to be the one responsible. Because when mistakes happened in Kang Joon-Seo's world, consequences followed. Heavy consequences. The man explaining the situation wiped sweat from his forehead. His voice trembled slightly. "I assure you," he said nervously, "we are still investigating who is responsible." Kang Joon-Seo leaned back in his chair. His expression didn't change. He simply watched the man carefully, studying him, almost like a chess player deciding which piece to move next. Then he spoke. His voice was calm, quiet, but it carried a weight that made everyone in the room straighten their posture. "Investigating," he repeated slowly. The man nodded quickly. "Yes, sir." For a few seconds, and no one spoke. The silence in the room became suffocating. Because when Kang Joon-Seo became quiet, it usually meant he was thinking. And when he was thinking, someone was usually about to face the consequences. But just as he was about to say something else, something unexpected happened. A loud crash echoed from outside the room. Everyone froze. The sound had come from the hallway. It sounded like metal hitting the wall, followed by water splashing across the floor. Several of the men instantly turned toward the door. Their expressions hardened. No one was supposed to be on this floor tonight, especially not during this meeting. One of the guards moved quickly toward the door. Another reached for his phone. The room suddenly felt dangerous. Kang Joon-Seo slowly raised his hand. The guard stopped immediately. His eyes shifted toward the door. He had already understood something the others hadn't. Someone had accidentally wandered into the wrong place. And whoever that person was, they had just interrupted a meeting they were never meant to see. Outside in the hallway, Amara stood frozen beside her cleaning cart. The bucket had tipped over. Water was spreading across the expensive marble floor. Her heart was racing. Because now, she could hear footsteps approaching the door. Heavy footsteps, several of them, and the moment that door opened, Amara would come face to face with the most feared man in the building. But what none of those men inside the room expected was that this frightened cleaner standing outside was about to change the course of the entire night. The hallway suddenly felt much colder. Amara stood frozen beside her cleaning cart, staring down at the water spreading slowly across the polished marble floor. The bucket had slipped from the cart after it bumped into the wall, and now the quiet hallway was filled with the unmistakable sound of dripping water. Her heart began pounding so loudly she was sure anyone nearby could hear it. And then she heard it. Footsteps. Heavy footsteps. Coming from behind the large door she had accidentally disturbed. Amara's eyes widened. Oh no! She quickly bent down, trying to gather the bucket and wipe the water before anyone noticed. Her hands trembled as she grabbed the mop, desperately trying to clean the mess she had made. But it was too late. The door slowly opened. The sound echoed through the silent hallway like a warning. Amara's body stiffened. She slowly looked up. Like standing in the doorway were several men in dark suits. Their expressions were sharp, suspicious, the kind of expressions that made it very clear she was not supposed to be there. One of the men stepped forward. His eyes scanned the hallway, then stopped directly on Amara. "Who are you?" he demanded. Amara immediately bowed her head. I'm sorry," she said quickly, her voice shaking. "I'm just the cleaner. I didn't mean to interrupt anything." The men exchanged glances. Something about the situation felt wrong. Very wrong. Because cleaners were never scheduled on this floor during private meetings. And the timing of her arrival felt suspicious. Another man stepped closer, his voice lower and colder. "How long have you been standing out here?" Amara's stomach tightened. She didn't know how to answer that question without making things worse. I just arrived," she said quickly. "I promise I didn't hear anything." But the men didn't look convinced. Inside the room behind them, the atmosphere had already changed. Several of the men were whispering quietly to each other. In their world, secrets were everything. And a stranger hearing even the smallest detail could become a problem. A serious problem. One of the guards stepped forward toward Amara. His expression hardened. "You shouldn't be here." Amara's heart raced even faster. "I'm sorry," she repeated, bowing again. "My supervisor told me to clean this floor. I didn't know there was a meeting." But the men were already exchanging cautious looks. To them, this might not have been an accident. And accidents were not something their boss tolerated easily. And then suddenly, a voice spoke from inside the room. "Wait." The single word immediately stopped everyone. The men stepped aside without hesitation, because that voice belonged to the one man none of them would ever dare ignore. From the shadows of the conference room, a tall figure slowly stepped forward. The hallway lights reflected faintly against the dark suit he wore, revealing calm eyes that seemed to observe everything at once. Amara had heard whispers about him before, but seeing him in person felt completely different. He wasn't shouting, he wasn't angry, yet somehow his presence alone made the entire hallway feel tense. This was Kang Joon-Seo, the man everyone in the building feared. He walked toward the doorway slowly, his footsteps steady and controlled. The men around him moved aside instinctively, creating space as he approached. Amara could feel her hands shaking again. Her eyes remained fixed on the floor. She didn't dare look directly at him, because even she had heard the rumors. Rumors about what happened to people who crossed powerful men like him. Kang Joon-Seo stopped a few steps away from her. For a moment, he simply observed the scene. The spilled water, the overturned bucket, the frightened cleaner trying desperately not to make eye contact. Then his gaze returned to Amara. She looked terrified, not suspicious, not dangerous, just scared. But the men behind him were not so sure. One of them leaned closer and whispered quietly, "Boss." She could have heard everything. The words hung heavily in the air. Amara felt her stomach drop. Even though the comment was whispered, she heard it clearly. And suddenly, like the situation felt far more dangerous than she had realized. The hallway fell silent. Everyone waited. Because now the decision belonged to one man, Kang Joon-Seo. Would he treat this as an innocent mistake? Or as a security problem that needed to be dealt with immediately? Amara slowly raised her head just enough to see his shoes standing in front of her. She swallowed nervously. "I'm really sorry," she said softly. "I didn't mean to disturb anyone." Another long silence followed. Then something unexpected happened. Instead of raising his voice, instead of ordering his men to remove her, Kang Joon-Seo stepped a little closer. Close enough that Amara could finally see his face clearly. His expression wasn't angry. It was thoughtful, almost curious. He studied her trembling hands, the worn cleaning gloves, the fear she was trying desperately to hide. Then, in a calm voice that immediately surprised everyone standing behind him, he spoke. "Look at me." Amara hesitated. Slowly, nervously, she lifted her eyes. For a brief moment, their eyes met. And that was when Kang Joon-Seo said the words no one in that hallway expected to hear. "Don't be afraid." He paused slightly, then finished the sentence in the same quiet tone. "I won't hurt you." The men behind him exchanged confused glances, because that was not the reaction they expected from their boss. Not at all. But the strangest part of the night was still about to happen, because as Kang Joon-Seo continued looking at Amara, something about her face seemed to trigger a memory he hadn't thought about in years. A memory connected to a moment in his past that almost no one knew about. And that memory was about to change the way he saw this frightened cleaner standing in front of him. For a moment, the hallway was frozen. Amara's heart was pounding in her chest so loudly, she was sure Kang Joon-Seo could hear it, even over the quiet hum of the building's lights. She tried to shrink back, to make herself as small and invisible as possible. But she couldn't escape his gaze. It was steady, calm, and oddly piercing. Then he spoke. "Where are you from?" The question was simple, innocent even. But Amara froze. Her mind raced. Why does he want to know? What if he's angry? What if I said the wrong thing? I'm from Nigeria," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Kang Joon-Seo's expression didn't change, not immediately, but the tiniest flicker crossed his eyes. A memory, a recognition, a moment of pause. The men behind him shifted uneasily. One whispered, "Boss, she shouldn't be here." But Kang Joon-Seo raised his hand ever so slightly. The room fell silent. No one dared speak. Not a sound. And then he said something completely unexpected. "Someone once helped me. A long time ago," he said, his voice softer now. "A stranger, a woman. She saved me when no one else would. And I've never forgotten it." Amara's eyes widened. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. The men around him exchanged puzzled glances. Was he talking about her? Kang Joon-Seo continued. "I see something in you. Something familiar. Courage. A willingness to do what's right, even when it's hard. That reminds me of her." Amara swallowed hard. Her throat felt dry. She opened her mouth, eyes trying to speak, but no words came. The tension in the hallway was electric. One of the men stepped closer, whispering again. "Boss." She might have heard too much. But Kang Joon-Seo shook his head slowly. He wasn't afraid. Not for her. Not for himself. Instead, he turned his full attention to Amara, and in that moment, it felt like the world had narrowed down to just the two of them. "You shouldn't be afraid of people like me," he said softly. Amara's eyes filled with disbelief. People like him? The man everyone fears? And just as she was trying to process his words, a soft click came from behind one of the doors. Someone was watching. Someone was listening. And what Kang Joon-Seo would do next would shock everyone in that building. If you were in Amara's place, what would you do? Would you trust him or run? Think about it, and share your answer in the comments. You might be surprised to see how many people would choose the exact opposite. The moment hung in the air, heavy with possibility and danger. Because while the men behind him waited for him to make a decision, Amara was realizing something terrifying. This encounter was no accident. And what she didn't know yet was that by stepping onto this floor tonight, she had unknowingly stepped into the center of a secret that had been hidden for years. A secret that only Kang Joon-Seo could control. And his next words would set the stage for a series of events that no one, least of all Amara, was prepared for. The hallway was silent. Amara's hands were trembling. Her cleaning gloves were soaked from the spilled water, and every instinct screamed at her to run, and to escape before she said or did something that could put her in danger. But Kang Joon-Seo didn't move. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't signal for anyone to throw her out. Instead, he simply studied her. And in that study, Amara could feel that he was seeing something deeper, something no one else had noticed. Then, slowly, he spoke. "You remind me of someone," he said, his voice calm but layered with a strange weight. Amara blinked. "Me?" she stammered. "Yes," he replied. "Many years ago. Someone helped me when I was in a place I couldn't escape. A woman, a stranger. She saved my life." Her heart skipped a beat. Who was he talking about? The men behind him stiffened, whispering to each other. One leaned in closer and muttered under his breath, "Boss." She might have heard too much. But Kang Joon-Seo ignored them. His eyes were locked on Amara, piercing and unreadable. "What's your name?" he asked. "Amara," she whispered, her voice almost inaudible. "Amara," he repeated, testing the sound. Then he tilted his head slightly, as if trying to recall a memory that had been buried deep. The tension in the hallway thickened. One of the men finally broke the silence, stepping forward nervously. "Sir, this floor is secure. She shouldn't have been here. We don't know what she's seen." Kang Joon-Seo didn't flinch. "And yet, she's here. So what does that mean?" The words hung in the air like a challenge. Everyone froze. Amara felt like the floor beneath her had disappeared. Her mind raced. Did I hear something I shouldn't? Did I ruin everything? But before anyone could say another word, Kang Joon-Seo leaned slightly closer. "You're not afraid of doing what's right," he whispered, almost to himself. "Even when the world tells you not to. That's remarkable." Amara's eyes widened. Did he just compliment me? And then came the first real twist of the night. One of the men whispered urgently, "Sir, there's someone outside. Someone watching through the cameras. They've been monitoring her since she arrived." The room went quiet again. The thought of being observed, even in a building full of dangerous men, was terrifying. Kang Joon-Seo's lips curved into the faintest smirk. "Let them watch," he said softly. "They don't understand what's happening here, but they will soon." Amara's mind reeled. What does he mean? Then, without warning, he gave a single command to the men around him. "Leave the hallway. Give us space." Everyone obeyed immediately, stepping aside, their eyes wide with confusion and fear. Now it was just Amara and Kang Joon-Seo, and the energy in the hallway shifted. What had started as fear now carried an undercurrent of something else. Curiosity, recognition, tension. For the first time, Amara realized that the man in front of her wasn't just a feared mafia boss. He was someone who saw her, Not the cleaner, not the invisible worker. Her. And that realization hit her like a shockwave, because she had no idea that the very next words from him would reveal a secret about her past that even she hadn't known. If you've ever felt invisible in a place where everyone else seems to matter more, pause for a moment and think, what if someone saw you the way Kang Joon-Seo is seeing Amara? Comment below with one word that describes how that would make you feel. Oh, the first twist was clear. Tonight would not be ordinary. And Amara's simple mistake, walking onto a floor she was never supposed to enter, had just begun a chain of events that would change everything. The question now was simple. Would Kang Joon-Seo protect her? Or would the secrets she had accidentally uncovered put her in danger beyond anything she could imagine? And the answer was about to take everyone by surprise. The hallway was silent, but the tension felt almost unbearable. Amara's hands were still trembling, and she could barely breathe. Every nerve in her body screamed at her to turn and run. Yet, for some reason, she couldn't move. She was frozen, not out of fear of the men behind him, but because of Kang Joon-Seo himself. He stepped closer, his gaze never leaving hers. Calm, measured, powerful, and yet strangely gentle. "Oh, you've been brave," he said, almost whispering. "Most people would have fled by now. Most people would have panicked. But you stayed." Amar's mind raced. Brave? Did he just call me brave? Before she could respond, a faint beep came from one of the security panels along the wall. Kang Joon-Seo's eyes flicked to it, but he didn't seem worried. Not at all. Instead, he said something that made her freeze in her tracks. "You weren't supposed to be here. Yet, here you are, and somehow I feel like fate brought you." The words hung in the air. Fate. Amara's heart pounded harder. She had never believed in destiny. Until now. Then came the real shock. Kang Joon-Seo leaned slightly closer. His voice dropped just enough for her to feel as though the words were only for her ears. "Years ago, when I was stranded in another country, I injured and alone. A woman helped me. A stranger. She risked everything for someone she didn't know. And I've never forgotten her kindness." Amara's eyes widened. Her mind couldn't process what he was saying. Is he talking about me? How could he possibly? Before she could speak, one of the men from behind him stepped forward, whispering urgently, "Sir." She might have overheard the meeting. Someone could see her as a threat. Kang Joon-Seo didn't flinch. Not a muscle moved on his face. He simply shook his head slowly and said, "She's not a threat. Not yet. And I intend to keep it that way." The men looked at each other, confused and alarmed. In their world, that level of leniency toward an outsider was almost unheard of. Amara swallowed hard. Her fear mingled with disbelief. "He's protecting me?" Then, the twist that no one expected yet happened. Kang Joon-Seo's lips curved into a faint, almost imperceptible smile. His eyes softened slightly. Not in weakness, but in recognition. "You remind me of her," he said quietly. "Of the woman who once saved my life. That same courage, that same determination. I haven't seen it in years. Until now." Amara felt her legs weaken. The cleaning cart she was gripping suddenly felt heavier than ever. She tried to process what he was saying. At that very moment, a shadow moved in the corner of the hallway. Someone was watching them. Someone who shouldn't have been here. Someone who had been tracking her since the elevator doors opened. Kang Joon-Seo noticed immediately. His gaze shifted, sharp and alert. Then, without a word, he turned back to Amara and said, "Don't be afraid. Whatever happens, you're under my protection. But know this, the night is far from over, and there are people who would like nothing more than to see you gone." Amara's pulse raced. Her fear was rising again, but now it was mixed with a strange sense of awe. Why is he protecting me? Why me? Then came the cliffhanger, the moment designed to keep anyone listening on the edge of their seat. A door at the far end of the hallway suddenly creaked open. Footsteps approached, slowly, deliberately. And from that darkness emerged someone whose intentions were impossible to read, someone who would change the balance of power in this story entirely. Amara swallowed hard, realizing that everything she had thought about this night, everything she had assumed about the building, the job, even Kang Joon-Seo, was about to be turned upside down. If you were in Amara's shoes, and would you trust him or brace for danger? Pause for a moment and comment below. What would you do if your life suddenly depended on someone as feared as Kang Joon-Seo? The hallway was no longer just a quiet passage for cleaning. It had become the stage for secrets, power, and a shocking chain of events that no one, not even Amara, was prepared for. And in that instant, one thing was clear. The night was far from over. And what happened next would shock everyone involved. The hallway had grown colder. Every shadow seemed darker. Every sound amplified. Even the soft hum of the lights above felt like a warning. Amara's hands still trembled. She gripped her cleaning cart as if it were a lifeline. Her heart was pounding in her chest, and yet she couldn't take her eyes off Kang Joon-Seo. He stood a few steps away, calm, composed, and terrifying. But there was something about his presence that made Amara feel both unsafe and strangely protected at the same time. Suddenly, one of the men who had been observing from the corner stepped forward. His voice was low, almost a hiss. "Boss, someone's been watching her. She's not supposed to be here. We don't know what she's seen." Kang Joon-Seo's eyes narrowed slightly, and for the first time, the faint tension in his expression deepened. "Let them watch," he said, his voice quiet but firm. "It doesn't matter. Not yet." Amara's mind raced. Watching her? Who is watching? What's happening? Then came a knock, soft, deliberate, at the far end of the hallway. A door creaked open, and another figure appeared, hidden in the dim light. Amara couldn't see who it was, but Kang Joon-Seo did. His gaze sharpened instantly, aimed like a predator sensing movement in the dark. "You weren't expecting company," he said, almost to himself. The newcomer stepped closer, careful not to make a sound. But the tension was thick enough to choke the air. Kang Joon-Seo's hand moved slightly toward the men behind him, signaling them to stand down. No one moved. They trusted him completely. Amara's chest tightened. "What is going on? Why am I here?" Then Kang Joon-Seo spoke to her again, softer this time. "Whatever happens tonight, stay calm. Do exactly what I tell you. Do not panic." She nodded, barely able to breathe. Her hands shook uncontrollably, but she felt the faintest reassurance from his words. The man from the shadows stepped forward just a little more, and now Amara could see his face. It wasn't someone she knew, not personally, but there was something in his expression, a mix of curiosity and calculation. He wasn't here to help. He wasn't here to welcome her. And in that moment, Amara understood. Her simple mistake had put her in the middle of something far bigger than she could imagine. The tension ratcheted higher when one of the men whispered urgently. She could overhear something she shouldn't. "We should—" "Quiet," Kang Joon-Seo interrupted sharply. His calm voice carried a warning that froze everyone in place. He stepped closer to Amara. "You're safe, for now. But understand this. There are people here tonight who would not hesitate to harm you if I wasn't here." Amara's pulse quickened. Harm me? Why me? Then, almost as if on cue, the building's security system beeped. A notification popped up on one of the monitors behind Kang Joon-Seo. Someone had accessed the VIP floor without authorization. Kang Joon-Seo's lips curved into a faint, unreadable smile. Interesting, he muttered. The men behind him stiffened. Something was happening, something dangerous, and yet only Kang Joon-Seo seemed to understand its significance. Amara realized then that this was no longer just about her being in the wrong place at the wrong time. It was about secrets. Secrets that powerful men would kill to protect. And right now, she was standing in the eye of the storm. Her mistake had triggered a chain reaction. One wrong step could have been deadly. But Kang Joon-Seo, the man everyone feared, had chosen to protect her, for reasons she couldn't understand. Not yet. And that protection came with a warning. The next move, the next word spoken, could change everything. And just as Amara tried to steady her breathing, the figure in the shadows moved again. Closer this time. The hallway held its breath. And in that silent moment, Amara realized the night was far from over. If you were in Amara's shoes, how would you feel right now? Cornered, but protected? Drop a comment with the first word that comes to mind. And don't forget to subscribe. Stories like this remind us that sometimes the bravest people are the ones we least expect. The next events would reveal just how dangerous the night really was and show that sometimes the people we fear the most hold the key to our survival. The tension in the hallway had reached a point where every sound felt amplified. Amara's hands were trembling so badly she could barely grip the mop. Her heart felt like it would burst through her chest. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but she knew she couldn't. Not yet. Kang Joon-Seo stepped forward, his gaze never leaving hers. His calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the chaos around them. The observing men, the mysterious figure lurking in the shadows, and the spilled water reflecting the dim lights like a warning. Then came the decision that no one expected. "You're leaving night shifts," Kang Joon-Seo said quietly. Amara froze. "Excuse me?" she whispered, barely daring to speak. "You heard me," he continued, his voice firm yet strangely gentle. "No more cleaning late at night. No more wandering into floors you're not supposed to enter. From now on, you'll have a safer position in this building." The men behind him gasped. Some exchanged nervous glances. Others were clearly confused. Why would the feared Kang Joon-Seo protect a cleaner? Amara blinked, trying to process the words. She had expected punishment. She had expected at least a stern warning, maybe even a sharp scolding. But this was nothing she could have imagined. One of the men finally asked, his voice trembling slightly. "Boss, why? Why give her a better position? She's just a cleaner." Kang Joon-Seo's expression hardened slightly, his eyes cold and unreadable. Then he said something that silenced everyone. "She reminded me of something important," he said. "Courage, honesty, bravery, qualities I respect, qualities that most people in this building lack. That is why she stays. That is why she will be protected." Amara's legs nearly gave way beneath her. She had never felt anything like this before. And yet, in the back of her mind, a small fear lingered. Why protect me? Kang Joon-Seo seemed to read her thoughts. "Don't be afraid," he said softly. "Not tonight, not ever. But understand this." He paused, letting the words sink in. "The night is far from over, and there are people here who would like nothing more than to see you removed from this building. Permanently." The men around them stiffened. The tension returned tenfold. Amara realized she was no longer simply a cleaner on the wrong floor. She was part of something bigger, something dangerous, something tied to secrets and power she couldn't yet understand. And then, the most shocking part of all happened. Kang Joon-Seo motioned toward her cleaning cart. "Leave it. Go with the security team. You're no longer responsible for the floors tonight." Amara froze again, staring at him in disbelief. And he wasn't just protecting her. He was elevating her, promoting her, shielding her from danger while giving her a new role, one that promised safety and respect. And in that instant, she realized the most feared man in Seoul had chosen her. Not because of her position, not because of her connections, but because he saw something in her that no one else did. Something rare, something worth protecting. The hallway was silent once more. Even the lurking figure in the shadows paused, realizing this night was no longer about intimidation. It was now about survival, loyalty, and a secret connection that even Amara had yet to understand. And just as she thought the worst was over, Kang Joon-Seo whispered in a tone meant only for her, "You think this is luck, but you should know. Nothing that brought you here tonight was accidental." Amara's heart stopped, because in that one sentence, he revealed a truth that would change everything she believed about her life, her work, and the man who had just become her protector. Weeks had passed since that fateful night. Amara's life had changed in ways she never imagined. Her new position kept her safe from the late-night dangers that had haunted her shifts. She could finally breathe a little easier, knowing that the most feared man in Seoul had taken it upon himself to watch over her. But peace, she soon realized, was only an illusion. Because Kang Joon-Seo didn't just protect her out of curiosity or kindness. There was more, and something deeper, something she could not yet understand. One evening, after finishing her tasks, Amara found herself alone in a quiet office. The hallway was dim, the lights casting long shadows. And there he was, Kang Joon-Seo, standing silently by the window, his back to her. "Amara," he said without turning. His voice was calm, controlled, yet it carried the weight of someone who had lived through decades of secrets and danger. She approached slowly, unsure of what to say. "Sir, is something wrong?" He turned finally, his gaze locking onto hers. And in that moment, she felt the full intensity of his attention. "You remember the story I told you the night we met?" he began. "About the woman who saved me years ago?" Amara nodded. She had replayed his words in her mind countless times, still struggling to understand their meaning. He paused, letting the silence stretch, building the tension until it felt almost unbearable. Then he said, "She wasn't just anyone. She was connected to your family. Someone who made a choice that saved my life, and unknowingly set the path that brought you here." Amara's eyes widened. Her stomach dropped. "What does that mean?" Kang Joon-Seo continued, his voice steady but laced with a quiet intensity. "The moment we met that night wasn't an accident. It wasn't chance, fate, or perhaps something beyond understanding. Guided you both to that hallway. And now, you are part of a story much bigger than yourself." She felt a chill run down her spine. The pieces of the puzzle were finally coming together, but they made her head spin. Her ordinary life, her simple goal to support her family, all of it had been leading to this moment. And there's more," Kang Joon-Seo said, leaning slightly closer. "The people who were watching you that night, they are still here. They have been waiting, watching, planning. But they underestimated you, and they underestimated me." Amara's pulse quickened. She realized the danger had never fully left. It had only shifted, waiting for the right moment to strike. But Kang Joon-Seo's next words left her completely stunned. "You have a choice, Amara. You can continue your life as it was. Or you can step into this story fully, the one your family unwittingly began years ago, and help me protect the secret that could destroy us all if it falls into the wrong hands." She swallowed hard, her mind racing. "This is insane. I'm just a cleaner." How could I possibly be part of something like this? Kang Joon-Seo's eyes softened slightly, and almost imperceptibly. You are not just a cleaner, he said quietly. You are the key, and if you understand that, everything changes. Amara realized in that instant that the night they met, the fear, the spill, the confrontation, had been just the beginning, and the true danger, the true story, had yet to reveal itself. Now tell us, if you were in Amara's shoes, would you embrace this mysterious fate? Or walk away from a life that could change everything you thought you knew? Comment below with your choice. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, because the next chapter of this story will shock you beyond belief. The camera of your mind now lingers on that hallway in Seoul. The quiet floors, the shadows, the spilled water. And somewhere, Kang Joon-Seo watches, waiting, protecting, and revealing a secret that no one could have anticipated. The story was far from over, and the final twist, the one that would shake Amara's world completely, is coming.